All right, so welcome everyone and good evening. My name is Ian Washington. I am the Director of Community and Social Impact at Grand Circus. I would like to welcome you to our event tonight, navigating through job loss and different tactics that we can look at to get back in the job market, to learn a little bit about resources that are out there. And just hear some experiences from our panel. We have people in industry. We have a couple of alumni. We have some resource in terms of resources for like reskilling. So with that being said, I would go ahead and have everyone introduce themselves. I'm looking at Lisa right now. So I'll go from Lisa to Josh to Colleen, Aaron, and then Kristen. If you guys wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves, the companies that you represent, and what you do.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Excuse my voice. I'm under the weather just slightly, so hopefully everybody can hear and understand me. My name is Lisa Strasky. I'm the director of the Oakland County, Michigan Work Southfield office. We provide workforce development services, employment and training services to individuals who are seeking to reskill, as well as employers that are looking to hire talent and to train and analyze the needs of their companies as well.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Colorito. I am an associate software developer at United Wholesale Mortgage. And prior to joining UWM, I had gone through the C#.NET Bootcamp at Grand Circus. I graduated last February. And then prior to that, I was an instructional designer at a company called Urban Science. So I created e-learning courses for a couple of years. And that's kind of what led me into a career change.
So thank you, Josh. Colleen.
Sorry. Hi, everybody. Colleen Geyer. I'm the Director of Talent Acquisition at Slalom. Slalom is a modern consulting firm. Our office is based in downtown Detroit. And I've been in the talent acquisition space in Metro Detroit for more years than I care to count sometimes. So it's nice to be here. Thank you for having me. I see a couple familiar names, so it's nice to see some folks that I recognize.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. And Aaron, then Kristen.
I'm Aaron Sandusky, currently a front-end developer with SupplyStream, part of Trinity Global, which is a national dropshipping company for industrial supplies. I originally was in the C# program back in the spring of 2018, so coming up on my fifth year anniversary being in the industry. Before that, I was working for a company called I2 Integration out of Lansing, Michigan, before we shut down last year. So.
Awesome. And last but not least, Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Gavel. I'm a recruiting manager at Ford Motor Company. I actually used to work with Colleen. So she's amazing and taught me everything I know. Well, a lot of what I know. But anyway, I think that I'm really excited to talk on this panel just because I have like both personal and professional like kind of connection and background with the topic. So yeah, excited to dive in.
Awesome. Well, with no further ado, I'd like to just jump right in. So, just come from some of the questions that came through, is related to like what the job market looks like from the hiring manager side. There's a lot of folks who right now they're trying their best. They're networking or maybe not as used to networking and trying to like tap into resources that are out there. So can you Kristen and Colleen, if you guys wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about like what things look like from your ends in terms of like talent acquisition and what can candidates do to make themselves stand out more? Are there suggestions for things that they can be doing while they're making this job search? So I'll have you start off if you don't mind, Kristen.
Yeah, absolutely. From the hiring manager side and like the business side, I know that it's networking. It's not like it sounds like very salesy. Like I never really loved networking because I'm like, why do I have to network when like I already know how to do my job? However, networking, I think, is simply just like to do the whole 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing that way. So you come to mind if like someone you know knows someone, and the community here in Detroit is actually like a lot smaller than what we think. And personally, I had gotten let go from a job due to like reductions. And I worked with Colleen a lot to, meet people. And I think you just really have to like let your boundaries and barriers go away, because those people probably know people who probably know people. And for example, like I met a couple of folks who like run their own like kind of consulting firms, or recruiting firms, and do like 1099s and like bring people on contracts and smaller companies. And that's not any job that I'd probably ever take, but like connecting with them, they are kind of like in this business for a reason, and understanding that, people have a reach and people want to help people, was something that really, like, this last time when I was laid off was like about 2.5 years ago, I think. That really helped me realize, like, I don't have to talk to this person for a job at their company, but I want to talk to them just to like know them because they know people. And that essentially, like, in a really roundabout way, is how I ended up at Ford. But from the business side, I think that when I am working with leaders, they honestly, this sounds bad, but like so many of our hires recently, especially, are referrals. So a lot of the people that we're bringing on board right now, it's like they just like lost their job. Quick, let's introduce them and get it going. So I think that, like, companies need people, and the fact, if you can somehow network and get referred, or at least like know someone who knows someone, that is already like a check. Like, okay, they're not a crazy serial killer or a bot or like something. Like, you're a real person, and that like goes to say a lot when we're trying to like do a mad dash for in the tech space, especially. So yeah.
Excellent. No, thank you for sharing that. Colleen?
Yeah, I +1 everything Kristen said. I think a couple other things maybe to think about. And it's funny because I just said this in a meeting we had at work. We have sort of a women's group that comes together, and we were talking about networking was one of our topics. And the moderator like asked, like, why do we network? And my answer was, because you just never know. You just never know, right? And somebody that you meet today could be, it could bear fruit today, or it could be 6 years from now. But much of the people that I have met in my life, and the way that I'm able to provide referrals to people are, oh, I just heard about this person. Let me, my friend Ian, let me introduce you. Like, all of that becomes because you just never know. Like, you take a chance and you have a conversation. When I very first got started in recruiting, I remember a candidate wanted to meet me face to face over coffee and talk about his career. And I was like, oh my God, I know him. And then I went, and it was one of the best meetings I've ever had. This was literally 20 years ago. We are still friends today. Like, he wrote a book. It's just all of these things that, again, you just never know what's going to come out of it. And so, while it might be outside your comfort zone, I strongly encourage you to do it and to build your network. You asked about things that you can do to stand out. I loved Kristen's thing about making referrals. Like, hey, Colleen, I know you're looking for this type of person. It's not me, but my friend Erin over here, right? Like, that makes me remember you, right? Because you brought somebody into my world. And then like, just getting into, like, if we want to use LinkedIn, if that's like a comfortable place for you, get into groups and start listening to the conversation. That's a way that you can sort of start to absorb what's going on in the market and in your industry without having to be quite overtly out there networking, if that's not a comfortable place for you yet. So maybe use that as a step one.
This is both really great points. I absolutely agree 100% with that. Josh wanted to come in. So, we have some alumni who have been in similar situations where they had to make that transition, into a different role. And so, Josh, would you mind maybe starting off and just telling us a little bit about like your background, and then we'll segue over to Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again for having me here. So prior to joining UWM, I was at Grand Circus. I did the C#.NET Bootcamp. And prior to that, I worked at a company called Urban Science. And so I created e-learning courses for a number of years. And in that role, I became really proficient at what I did. And I started to realize there was kind of a parallel between creating e-learning courses and the world of coding. I had to use a lot of conditional logic and things to make my courses come to life. And that's kind of what made me think that I wanted to be a software developer someday. So I talked to my really good friend who's been in IT for about 10 years, got his thoughts about going to a boot camp. He thought it was a great idea. So that night I started researching Grand Circus a little bit more. I was pretty convinced at that point I was going to do the part-time boot camp. In fact, actually, I talked to Ian about joining. And then about 4 days after I had that conversation,
Oh no.
yeah, just due to downsizing for the pandemic. And it was really devastating. It was a hard thing to go through. And it was in that moment I decided that I wanted to pursue software development. I said, well, that was a good time to dive feet first into this full time. So I did. And the really amazing thing, and I want to kind of piggyback on what some of the others were saying, is networking is really the key to landing that first job, because I'll quickly give this story. My coworker, she was let go at the same time. Her name was Maureen. We were both instructional designers. Maureen told me she wanted to become an instructional designer again. And I said, hey, let me know if I can help you with referrals. A couple weeks later, she reaches out to me. She says, hey, I'm thinking about applying to United Wholesale Mortgage for an instructional designer position. Can you let me know of anyone you know who works there? I said, yeah, my former 7th grade teacher does. Let me get you in contact with him. Turns out the position she applied to was actually the position he had open on his team. So she got hired right in. And then in the middle of that, he then reached out to me and said, hey, are you looking for work? And I said, yeah, I just started this boot camp at Grand Circus. I've heard really good things about this DevX program that you guys have. And it turns out he was actually the person who runs the program. So I think that's just kind of like a testament to networking and how it can really kind of help you get your first job. I owe a lot to him and to UWM.
That's fantastic. Love hearing that. Aaron, you want to share your background and story?
Yeah, so my background is a little scrambled. I started out in mechanical engineering a long time ago, decided it wasn't for me, and fell into the retail cyclone and stuck around there for way too long, unhappy, until one of my coworkers left the business and decided to do Grand Circus Boot Camp back in 2017, I believe it was. He almost got me to do it, but I needed him to be my guinea pig first. So he went and did it. And, a month after getting out of boot camp, he had a new job and he loved it and it was great. So I immediately said, I'm quitting my job and, doing it too. So I did that. And that's my first instance of networking. It was just someone that went through it and convinced me that it's safe to do. It's worthwhile to do. I trusted him and his views on it. So I got in there. That was beginning of 2018. I also did the C#.NET Bootcamp in Grand Rapids. And less than 2 months after boot camp, I had a job. I took a job out of Grand Ledge, which is right next to Lansing, Michigan. I worked there for about 4 years. During the pandemic, of course, like many other places, we had to go remote. Luckily, we had a smooth transition, went right into the remote workspace. I kind of enjoyed it. The remote lifestyle has been one of the best changes for the industry. One of the few good things that came out of the pandemic. But because of the freedom my job offered me and my girlfriend at the time, we both worked remotely and we decided we're going to make a big move. So we decided to move out to Denver. And about 4 months after we moved, my CEO decided he was going to shut down the company and retire after 35 years. It was a private company. He could do what he wanted, obviously. We had just lost a very large enterprise contract because the company decided they wanted to can the project we had been working on for 4 years. Wasn't much to them, but to a small private company, a couple $1 million was a big chunk. So he didn't want to go through the stress of finding another large enterprise project to work on. So we got a little bit of notice and then we shut down. So to put salt in the wound, I had just broken up in my relationship, just moved to a brand new, very expensive city and lost my job. So it was, large triple threat there that I was going through. But I use the time with the transition of the new city, the freedom of not having a job, to kind of reevaluate what I want to do with my position. I was doing mostly .NET. It was full stack. I had a little bit of front end experience from it, and I really enjoyed the front end. So I decided to focus about a month to kind of get back into front end development, really go 100% into it, learn some of the new software like Nuxt and Vue 3 and some different architectures. And I just started poking around at remote jobs. When you kind of open up your field of, I'm not going to just stick to Western Michigan or Eastern Michigan. I'm just going to say anywhere in the country that has remote work, that has a tech stack I'm interested in, I started applying to. Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, all the job sites. Eventually started networking with a couple of recruiters that kept me in their back pocket. And as soon as some positions that they thought I was qualified for, even interested in, came my way, had some really solid interviews. I got multiple job offers in the Denver area, and the company I currently work for is based out of Los Angeles and New Jersey. So I'm 100% remote. I love my job now. It was a great transition. Wages better than the Midwestern wage, easier to live in Denver on. So, I mean, it was a rough month with everything happening all at once, but it was a great transition. And I made a lot of friends in the industry, recruiters and people with my company, using some of their networking. People I know in Michigan, I've done some ad hoc work for them just on the side. And yeah, definitely have leaned on the recruiters and people I've met in the industry over the last several months.
That's excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And I have some questions for you and the rest of the panel, just kind of related to, tactics for managing that type of networking. But I wanted to go to Lisa from Michigan Works of Southfield in Oakland County. And Lisa, do you mind just talking a little bit, briefly about the programs that's offered through Michigan State and Michigan Works and how that works in terms of like reskilling and retraining and who may qualify?
Sure. So listening to the stories, it's nice to hear that even though there were some unfortunate incidents, that you guys managed to find support and find a way to get through those things. And I think that's one of the things that Michigan Works staff, especially at Southfield, prides themselves on. We are a state agency through Oakland County that provides employment and training services to individuals who are seeking to either upskill, reskill, change careers. And these are all free services. There are no costs to the services that we provide. Many of the people that come into our office have don't know about us. It's usually because they've lost their jobs that they come into a Michigan Works Center. We are not the unemployment office. We are the office that helps you become reemployed. So that is, if someone believes that that's what we do, that is not what we do. We're here to help individuals gain additional skills, reskill, and try to find, a way to self-sufficiency and better than that. So we provide tuition assistance for individuals who are eligible. We do one-on-one case management. So individuals who are looking, and it could be something simple as, I need a new resume. I don't know how to sell myself. I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how to brand myself. We work on those things. If you're looking for retraining and you're looking to figure out what you want to do next, like what you want to be when you grow up, we have career counselors to assist with that process as well. In addition to that, training. So if you come in and you already know what you want to do, and you know that, software development is something that you're interested in, we work with you to try to find the best solutions to get that kind of training, and we assist with the cost of that tuition. Over the last couple of years, it has been there's been a lot of change. Individuals have found themselves thinking about work differently, knowing and maybe feeling like what I was doing before is not what I want to do any longer. You know, priorities changed. You might have thought, okay, I wanted to be this forever, and now I do not want to do that any longer. Michigan Works has been there through that whole process to help individuals navigate that change, as well as find what their next step is in life. We've had a wonderful relationship and long-term relationship with Grand Circus to assist individuals who have been interested in training and provided tuition assistance to help them. I've been doing this for about 30 plus years, and the last few years have shown the complete difference and change that has taken place in the work world. I think that people are now looking and deciding for themselves that maybe now is the time to make those changes because of everything that they've experienced over the last few years. Willing to take that chance, willing to see what's next. And we're a great place to start. There are 6 different Michigan Works agencies in Oakland County, and they're all over Michigan. So it's not the only area that provides that. But if you are interested in, you know, learning a little bit more, trying to get a little additional support, we do work with mostly Oakland County residents. If you are between the ages of 16 and 24, you do not have to, there is no residency requirement. And if you're a dislocated worker as well, someone who's been laid off, collecting unemployment, maybe lost their job through no fault of their own, and those are also individuals that do not need to be an Oakland County resident. There are additional resources, and I can talk about those after, you know, maybe you get through some of the other things that you'd like to talk about, but there are some additional resources that I think could be very helpful to individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of them you and I spoke about earlier. But one other thing I just wanted to mention too, you had mentioned to me that, you know, in the time that you've spent with Michigan Works, you know, the last 2 years has been the largest funding round, you know, for individuals looking to retrain. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. There's never been the kind of money that has been available for training that we've had in the last couple of years. I am hopeful for additional funding very soon. For individuals who are dislocated workers, there's plenty of funding available for those individuals. But in addition to that, someone who just needs to be reskilled or just interested, maybe you are currently working and you just, you know, you decided that this is the next step you want to take. Don't hesitate to call Michigan Works to see if you're eligible for those services. There are plenty of ways of being eligible, and we work with individuals to make sure that we can figure that out. And if not, then we can maybe assist with finding other resources to maybe help with that path. Because that is one of the things that we're very good at, is making sure that you know, we're taking a holistic approach to your career plan.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So one of the things that I wanted to, you know, to talk about, and this is kind of open to the panel, and this is some of the questions that came through, but there's, you know, obviously a lot of interest in kind of emerging technologies and, you know, disruptive technologies that are kind of coming into play. And, you know, there's some fear that, you know, AI is taking their jobs, or, you know, the market is, you know, just reacting because, you know, people decide not to go back to work, or they refuse to, you know, come back to the office. So, you know, I say that to ask the panel, is there any like things that people can do to like set themselves apart? Obviously networking is a big part of it, right? But as we get into this period where there's like amazing transition and people looking to you know, go into different, you know, jobs or you know, get into a different company, are there things that people can do that are pretty low yield to just stand out amongst the crowd, right? Any thoughts out there?
Yeah, I can suggest something from the developer side. Ironically enough, last week tonight, John Oliver was talking about AI and its effects on industry, and, you know, the upsides and downsides of AI. Of course, developers, they joke about we're going to code ourselves to be unemployed. Someone's going to come up with the next great AI that's just going to replace all of us. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. To calm the room, it's years out before we're all going to be unemployed because some computer is going to replace us. If you've seen anything that the AI does, it's pretty sloppy. It's based on existing code. It only knows what it's doing because it looks at what already exists. So if you're worried about AI being creative and coming out with new ideas and new methodologies, new frameworks, it doesn't have that information yet. Everything it knows from us and what's already been done. So people being creative and coming up with, let's say, a new framework or a new application idea or a new method to do something, AI isn't that great. You see it even in the creative world with like art. They have all these applications that can say, take a prompt, show me a duck that is in the shape of a banana. They can do that, but it doesn't look great because it just knows what a banana is and a duck is. So I'm not worried about AI yet, as long as companies don't go off the rails and try to rely on it for more than it should be. My company, we're not really using AI for anything more than like algorithms for shipping and efficiencies. So, we're leveraging it and the efficiencies of AI to streamline where we can get a product from as fast as possible, as cheap as possible. And it writes algorithms and can do it. We don't need to do that manually anymore. So that's a good way to use AI versus a company trying to say, okay, well, I'm going to fire my entire workforce and just tell AI to make me a program. That's nowhere near fruition yet. So I definitely wouldn't worry about that at the moment.
Yeah. So let's say that someone has like recently, lost a job, and maybe they're a writer. Maybe, they are doing a job function that could be replaced or is, slowly being kind of displaced. Is there suggestions out there for what someone can do to continue to, hone in on those skills while they're trying to figure out, right? There's, while you're looking for a job, I mean, that's almost a full-time, position in itself, but is there things that people can be doing to better themselves that don't necessarily require immediately going to a school or like maybe while they're researching, what to do? Like what suggestions do you guys have out there?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah, please.
So one thing I did actually prior to joining Grand Circus was I started taking courses on Codecademy and Free Code Camp. That was basically a suggestion that my good friend had given me, and he was the one who kind of steered me towards going to Grand Circus in the first place. So I started diving into that. And personally, I found that really beneficial, not just in getting a taste of what coding was like, but it really, I felt, prepared me well for the first couple weeks of the boot camp, and I felt like that kind of gave me a good head start to succeeding in the program. So I definitely encourage people to check that out. Anyone who's ever approached me about going to Grand Circus or what my thoughts are is I always kind of steer them towards Free Code Camp or Codecademy, or even YouTube tutorials too. Those can be really helpful as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lot of free kinds of training to kind of get your feet wet to see what might be out there. And to Aaron's point, I don't see we're working with some very large companies that are doing application and software developer apprenticeships. So I'm thinking that there's no chance that AI is taking over those types of positions at this point. If you're investing in your workforce and trying to create a pipeline for software developers and application developers, I think there's a good chance that for quite a while you're going to be okay.
Elaine or Kristen, any thoughts on things that people can be doing from the talent that you're both seeing?
I think
Go ahead.
for me, I think it's more like the opposite what people don't do. And I think like you need to like put your life vest on, and if you need a job and that's like what you need, just take what you can get and have like a minimal list of boxes you need to check off, whether it's to pay your bills, have health insurance, whatever. And then when you have that settled, like definitely then maybe use more of your energy and mental space to like see what you want to do long term. And I think that that's totally okay. I think that a lot of times we overcorrect, and if you lose your job, you're like, and I've been here, I'm like, oh my gosh, at that time I took that job, I had this other offer too, and I should have taken that offer because then this wouldn't have happened. And then you're like, you have stage fright when you're then in this spot where you're like finding something wrong with every opportunity after the layoff. And you're asking yourself, oh, is it going to happen here? Is it going to happen here? Like, try and separate yourself from that. Do what you need to do, put your life vest on, and then it's okay to like look at what you want to do long term. It's your career. And like that exact same thing happened to me. I took a role and I knew wasn't going to be my forever role, but it was what I needed at that time. And then eventually, because of networking, and because Colleen actually reached out because she knew someone who knew someone, and she didn't even know I was like open to it. So definitely make your intentions known, and take care of yourself. And it's okay to like take a job after that happens that you don't see yourself being in forever. It really plays to the insecurity of like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm a job hopper, but like if you don't take anything, and it's just gonna not work out for you. Like, it's okay to see like a job on your resume for 6 months. So I can speak from the business side of it.
It's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing, Kristen. I had written down on my card here, like, you can take a job. It doesn't have to be the job, right? Like, and I love your reference to like, put your life jacket on, right? Use your oxygen mask first. Take care of what you need to take care of, and then start adding in the other things that you can add in to get to the job, if that's what it is. And there's, I think, don't let that be something that hinders you from moving forward, because even just like you went into a job that you knew wasn't going to be the forever thing, but you did it, and it served its purpose, and you moved on to something even bigger and better. And you learned a lot in the process, and that was okay, right? And it was a short-lived role, but that's okay. So I think giving yourself some grace around all of that is important.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I'd kind of like to just piggyback off that, and I absolutely agree with both of them, because as I said, I kind of put myself in a position where I had just moved to a very expensive city. It's one of the most expensive cities in the country, and that's coming from East Lansing, where my mortgage was less than half of what my current rent is when I moved here. So when I lost my position, one of the first things I did after like taking in for a weekend, I sat down and I planned. I looked at all of my expenses, all of my finances. I knew, my savings, all my investments, anything I had. I laid out, okay, these are the timelines. I must have a job by this time. If I don't get a job by this time, I need to do this. I need to do this. How I knew exactly how long I could stay in Denver if I was unemployed. I would be, driving back to Michigan at some point to sleep on someone's couch if I had to. Or, I had it set in my head, okay, well, if I can't find my ideal job by this date, I'm going to just take a job. And I did have a job lined up. It would have been an hour commute each way, 3 days a week, because it was a hybrid role. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to take this because I know I can start in 3 weeks and it's going to give me some cushion. And I kept on looking for another position, and I eventually found the position I'm at right now. While the other company was kind of dragging their feet getting me onboarded, and I ended up turning that company down that initially accepted me because I found a better role. But I was willing to take a job that wasn't my ideal because I needed a job. And I knew it gave me that life vest where even if I wasn't going to be, there for 10 years, I could be there for 6 months while I figured it all out. I definitely make a plan.
So I had a question for Kristen and Colleen, and maybe anyone else that can add something to this. But you mentioned that a lot of the roles you've seen are coming through like referrals, right? And is there any like key characteristic that stands out amongst the candidates? Is there like a candidate that you can think of that really stood out and something that they did that was exemplary that made you kind of keep that in mind? Colleen's shaking her head no.
Well, and every circumstance is so different, right? I hire one person one day for this role, which has these skills, and something different the next day. So like finding one thing to give that piece of advice around, I think is really tricky. I think it's just really, I mean, if I had to boil it down, it's probably just engagement, right? Being engaged in your industry, knowing the people, networking, talking, like just being an active participant in all of that. But I don't think I can nail it down to a specific thing because there's too many variables for me. Kristen, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I don't love that question only because I don't want people to think that they have to have this one thing that
Yeah.
makes them get the job. Like to me, the folks that get the job, again, they are engaged, they can speak to what they are doing. They it's really comes down to like, do you know your skill and are you willing to learn? And those are the two very like important things that I know we look for, which Colleen and I used to work where we used to work. We always said humble, hungry, and smart. And that's kind of been an important thing, you know, wherever I've gone. Like a lot of the leaders that I work with, they want folks who are humble. They want folks who are eager to learn. They know that they haven't arrived and, you know, smart enough to pick up on things. And people don't think that you're not those things just because you experienced a layoff either. So I think that at the end of the day, I like this panel to like tell you that it's like, don't let it get to your head and drag you down too much. But I don't think there's like one thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the candidate. Because again, like Colleen says, I'm looking at like hundreds of roles a day. And it's kind of about that person like being willing to jump in and mesh with the team and that type of thing. So
I think one of the things that we've noticed with Michigan Works is that employers, you know, we use the phrase willing to take Robin because Batman doesn't exist. Or, you know, Robin is just as good as Batman. So I think that employers are now looking at individuals differently. You're maybe looking at, like they mentioned, the engagement, how you're keeping up with your skills. What have you done over the course? If you are unemployed, what have you done with your time over the course of the last few months? And I do think that employers are giving opportunity to individuals that they may not have given opportunities before because of the things that have happened over the course of the last few years, willing to take a chance, willing to do on-the-job training. So I think that that's a plus that we've experienced over the last couple of years that I haven't seen in years past. And I've been doing this for a really long time.
Can I chime in with something as well?
Yeah, yes, please.
So I think, you know, if you go through something like a job loss, you can actually turn that into a positive in the interview process or in the networking process, because especially with coding, you know, it's all about problem solving, right? And especially in my job in particular, I work in app support. And so my job is to fix bugs every day. And I really enjoy it. And it's like being a code detective. And there's a lot of times where, you know, I write a line of code, it doesn't work. I write another line of code, it doesn't work. And eventually you just have to keep kind of going at it until you find the solution. And so I think, you know, if you can handle something like a job loss and you can sell that during the interview and talk about how you persevered from that, I think that goes a long way into just kind of being a good developer, because it requires a lot of perseverance. And so, you know, you can kind of turn a sour situation into something special. You know, it's like, you know, you get lemons and you turn it into lemonade.
That's great. So as we get closer to the hour here, I wanted to see if there was any folks that in the audience that wanted to take advantage of this great panel and come off mic if you feel uncomfortable, get on camera and ask away. Anyone?
And maybe while we're waiting, if folks are gathering their thoughts, I'll offer one thing. You said something earlier, Ian, that sort of triggered a thought in my mind, and that is that I think keeping organized around your networking and your applications and things like that is really, really important. Like I have notes galore about when I met somebody, why we talked, what we talked about, things to help me sort of, you know, remember for the next time, but keeping track of that in some way that works for you. so that, you know, when you build your network over time, you sort of have some of that to look back on, and you understand what you've connected for. Same thing with like applying for jobs, keeping track of when you applied to what role, when you're going to follow up, stuff like that. Like you said, finding a job is a job, and you're absolutely right. But keeping yourself organized around that, I think is super important, because the last thing that you want to do is show up to that call or get that call from someone and be fumbling around for the whys and the wherefores, right? So that's my one thing, is stay organized around that stuff.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat if you don't want to come off mic. Anyone out there?
Hey everybody, this is Don.
Hey, Don.
Hey Colleen, how are you? Always good to see you again.
Likewise, my friend. I was pleased to see your name today. I hope you're well.
Likewise, yes, I am, and hope the same for you. I just had more comments than questions. Listen to everybody speaking. Ian and I have talked on a few occasions recently, and I think that I'm really bullish about our area's ecosystem. And Lisa, you said something that was poignant to me about how employers are starting to open up more of their mindsets on the talent pool and things like that. Because what I do, I basically help in the ecosystem overall by my partner and I, we have like it's more like a headhunting concierge, because we have clients that we help them get roles for people and to fill, but then we also do app development and other things centered around tech. And then I personally teach coding to middle and high school students. And so I think by looking at both of those ends, I think that being part of building more of the parameter of talent pool is really key. And you know, to hear about Aaron and Joshua's stories, it's kind of reminds me of myself, because I took the Grand Circus Boot Camp in the fall of 2016, and 2017 was very rough. I couldn't find anything at all. I think that the tech industry as a whole it has a certain misnomer to it. People think that it's one certain thing, and that there's one certain cookie cutter path, where it's not, because it's so vast. Because the tech area is the only place that has permeated every other industry. Like everybody uses a computer, everybody's on the web. Most companies have websites, so you need the workers for that. But I think I never imagined having a potentially lucrative career in just the teaching, because like for me, actually I'm up for a couple of jobs that are paying well to the mid 5 figures about just teaching, you know, high school students. And then I had a couple of the last couple of years after the pandemic, like 21 and 22, around this time, I had a couple of recruiters actually reach out to me about potential jobs, but I turned them down because Java is not my expertise, but those are well-paying jobs. And to be able to be an educator in this space as well as a programmer, it just shows me that there's so much potential, whether you're a non-tech role, whether you're an engineering role person, you know, it's a lot of trajectory of potential. And the amazing thing is that there's still a talent shortage. So it's just such an upside to it. And I think that a lot of people either don't see or don't understand. And I'm still bullish, and I'm definitely bullish about Michigan, because most of our clients are here. We got about 25 of them, and they're all great startups and doing great things. So like anybody that's in the audience listening or listening later that has any trepidations or questions, then it's about courage. And like everybody was speaking before about being able to network. Networking is what got me going, even just little stuff I'm doing. I feel like I'm still not there anyway. I got things I got to do financially, but I know it's the golden nugget is coming soon. And I think that, you know, hopefully when I get over my hump, I can be a definite life story testimony to anybody, because I think I've had the roughest of rough. I'm still recovering from 2017, but because it's tech, I know there's a lot of potential with it, and there's a lot of opportunity. So just want to say those are parting words. Thanks.
No, thank you, Don. Really appreciate that. And something that you said, I just wanted to make a comment on. You mentioned that you tutor and that you teach, and you know, if there's a skill that you have, and while you're in this transition, that's a great opportunity for you to just hone in on your skill and make yourself better. You know, volunteering, mentorship, teaching others. I find that, in most cases that actually helps you to be better at what you're doing, and you hone in on your craft. So that's a really great piece of advice. Also, not every person has a computer, Don. My mom is not have a computer. So that's the one person who might not have a computer. So is there any other questions out there in the audience before we do some last points? Because I think there's a couple things that Lisa said she wanted to share about offerings from Michigan Works, but I just wanted to see if there's any other questions, and then we can jump right into that. Anyone else? All right. Well, just maybe this kicks some things off. Lisa, do you want to just mention a couple of those things that you mentioned to me earlier briefly about options that are out there for folks, and then we'll go into some closing statements.
Absolutely. So through Michigan Works in Oakland County, we have some special funding that could absolutely help individuals who are going to school or working. So there is a child care scholarship available to Oakland County residents. The scholarship is a $1,200 scholarship per family. It is available at 300% of the poverty level. So a family of 4 could earn around $72,000 and still be eligible for this. And if you have other barriers, that income requirement may not even need to be there. So that's one thing. And this is specifically for Oakland County residents. We also have something called ARP supportive services, which is supportive services to help individuals either stay in school, help with getting to employment or keeping employment. So you do have to live, work, or go to school in Oakland County in order to qualify. But let's just say you decided you were going to go to Grand Circus and you might live in Milford. You want to go to Grand Circus? If you work with a Michigan Works, we can provide you with gas cards to be able to get you to and from, so that one thing is off your plate, and you can maybe not have that one thing to deal with while you're going to school, in addition to the tuition assistance that might be available. If you're going to school elsewhere, maybe you're going to Wayne State, but you live in Southfield, we might be able to assist you with books and fees for school. Where maybe if you're not eligible for our programs or our financial programs that help to pay for schooling, might still be able to help you through ARP supportive services to be able to take classes somewhere. So just keep that in mind, that there are more resources available than just coming in and working with someone to work on a resume, to help you with interviews, to help you with that one class that you might need in order to get your degree. There's more potential for assistance and resources there.
Excellent. One last question that I had out, and this is just for anyone, I guess you can kind of make closing, comments from this, but, as grueling as the process is to look for a job, how do you stay motivated, and what encouragements do you have to keep people encouraged about the job search, to not feel defeated, about a rejection? Any thoughts out there for that?
Yeah, for me, it had been a while since I had to apply for a job. I mean, I was with my last company for 4 years, and they were my first tech company. So I was still pretty darn green to interviewing in the tech industry, which is completely different than many industries. You have, whiteboarding sessions are intimidating. You have take-home code projects to do. You might have a day to do it or a week to do it. You have tech interviews with 3 senior developers, staring you down. It can be intimidating. But when I got to this next round of applying for jobs this past year, I took everything with a grain of salt. Like, everything was a learning opportunity. Every single time I applied to a company, it was a completely different process. I don't know if I had the same process for any of them. Most of them, of course, start with a little introductory phone call, and then they set you up with a coding project if it's remote, or they ask you into the office to whiteboard, or they have some weird tech round interviews. It could be with a business analyst, it could be with a project manager, it could be with a senior developer. every single one was different. I probably did about 10 to 12 different applications over a month, and everyone was different. I got turned down to some of them. I didn't hear back from a lot of them. I made it to the final round where I was sure I was going to have a job in 4 of them, and I got turned down from 3 of them. So, I didn't let it beat me down. I saw a lot of unique opportunities with companies that just sounded fantastic, really unique tech stacks or projects they were working on, that it just got me excited knowing that there's so much more out there than I had been exposed to this point. I felt like I kind of siloed myself in my last position. And honestly, my company closing down has been a blessing because I love my job even more than I ever did. I'm learning things that really actually excite me now instead of just taking a job that I kind of fell into out of boot camp. And I'm excited to work every day. I love it. I'm with a newer company that's skyrocketing right now. I got in on the ground floor, and there's huge potential with it, in many different ways. And I've learned what I love now. So yeah, it was blessing in disguise. It was a rough month, but everything's been great afterwards.
So Ian, I'll offer a couple things, thinking about your question. Staying motivated is sometimes a little bit hard. So I think the 2 things I would say is, and not knowing what everybody's situation is necessarily, but thinking about the audience you've pulled together, like, first of all, let yourself feel, right? Whatever it is you're feeling, let that happen, because it is a normal, natural human response, and you need to go through it to get through it. So whatever it is, feel it. And then I think probably the best way to stay motivated is setting small goals. What am I going to do today? Or what am I going to do before lunch? Or what am I going to do when I first wake up in the morning? And get yourself through those small things, because eventually it will add up and you will have made great strides. But sometimes the prospect of like, oh my gosh, I'm looking for a job is just too much, right? So how do you break that down into something that you can manage to do by 10 a.m. or by the end of the day or this week's things? So those are my 2 things: is let yourself feel it and break it down into small, achievable goals for yourself.
I love what Colleen said about the achievable goals, because when you are unemployed, you lose your job. It's really easy to lose that structure that you rely on every day. Getting up at 7, getting your coffee, going to work, the commute, just the process. And then it's really easy just to wallow in it and be at home. I let myself feel it for a weekend because it happened at the end of the week. And then on Monday, I said, okay, I'm structuring everything. I want to do X number of courses online every week. I want to write a certain amount of code every week. I want to watch a certain amount of videos. I want to apply to a certain number of positions. Didn't even matter if it was cannon fodder positions. It's just getting my name out there, talking to a certain number of recruiters. And when you check those boxes and follow a structure, it still feels like you're being productive. You're not just sitting there being sad. Little wins, like I talked to 2 recruiters today. I applied to 3 places today. I wrote 100 lines of code today. I learned something new. It goes a long way in progressing you out of that hole that you find yourself in.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the entire panel. I don't know if there's any other last thoughts. And then I was just going to kind of go through some logistics that we'll be running through. Anyone else? All right. Well, first off, again, thank you so much to the panel for joining me today, sharing these insights. I really do hope that this inspires some folks who are going through it right now, if only just to understand it. There's a support system out there, there's resources available. And many of the insights, from tonight just like shows that it does pay off. It just takes a little bit of persistence to keep going through it. And, even from the hiring manager side, they've also gone through it, before and persevered. So just stay with it and know that you have some resources out there. My plan is to follow up, with an email, just kind of reiterating some of the talking points. I usually do share LinkedIn contacts with the follow-up email. Is everyone in the chat okay, or on the call okay with that? Excellent. Kristen, I didn't see your thumbs up. All right, cool. Thank you so much. Again, I really appreciate all of you, taking the time to be with us today or this evening. And with that said, I wish you all a great evening. To our panelists, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. You guys came through, and I love you all for doing that. So thank you again. And then yeah, have a great night, everyone, and be safe.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take it
Thank you.
easy. Bye-bye.
Everyone.